see me looking out through my sunglasses, I'm not trying to be cool or anything. I have lost 3 pair of glasses since July. That's one a month. I don't know where they are. I'm down to these. So that's all I got. Okay. Laura and I are do the scripture first. Today's scripture is found in Luke chapter 16, verses 1 through 13. If you would stand as you're able for the reading of the Word. I'm going to be reading from the New Revised Standard Edition. Then Jesus said to his disciples, there was a rich man who had a manager, and charges were brought against the manager for squandering the owner's property. So he summoned the manager and said, what is this I hear about you? Give me an accounting of your management, because you cannot be my manager any longer. Then the manager thought, what will I do now? My master has taken the position away from me. I'm not strong enough to dig. I'm too proud to beg. I've decided what I should do is, when I'm dismissed as manager, people may welcome me into their homes because of what I do for them. So summoning the master's debtors one by one, he asked the first, how much do you owe the master? The debtor answered, 100 jugs of olive oil. The manager said, take your bill, sit down quickly, and make it 50 jugs. Then he asked another, how much do you owe? The debtor replied, 100 containers of wheat. So the manager replied, take your bill and make it 80. And his master commended the dishonest manager because the way he had acted shrewdly. For the children of this age are more shrewd in dealing with their own generation than are the children of light. And I tell you, make friends for yourselves by means of dishonest wealth, so that when it is gone, they may welcome you into their eternal homes. Whoever is faithful in very little is faithful in much, and whoever is dishonest in very little is dishonest in much. If then you have not been faithful with the dishonest wealth, who will entrust you to the true riches? And if you have not been faithful with what belongs to another, who will give you what is your own? No slave can serve 2 masters, for a slave will either hate the one and love the other, or be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and wealth. We ask for blessings upon this word. Please be seated. Later this week, Laura and I are headed out to L.A. That's Lower Alabama. To see my mom, who's 92. She's still sharp, a little too sharp if you ask me. And she is proud of her wit. Now, she's always been a witty person, and it's funny when she aims what she calls her wit at somebody else. But when it's aimed at you, we call it meanness. Being mean. So last time I was there, she had just moved into an assisted living facility, and she loves it. It's a great facility. And I was down there visiting, and I talked to some of the staff, and they all seemed very dedicated and caring, and she's getting good food. And I'm sitting in her room. We're talking about changes, and there's a knock on the door. A man walks in. Clearly, he's a member of the staff there, and he's there to do something. Matter of fact, I saw he had an air conditioning filter. He's going to change the filter in the air conditioning. So he walks over there and starts to, and my mom, with her wit, points at him and says, we've got 2 maintenance workers in the building. This is the stupid one. No, it goes on. We like the other one. He can fix anything. This one can't do anything. He breaks everything. So I gave him a 10 out of 10 on putting the filter in. He didn't break anything. He walks out, kind of has a little smirk on his face. You know. So after he leaves, I said, Mom, let's make a deal, okay? Let's make a deal. You and I, we need to make this covenant. Can you not say mean things about people or to people? I said, especially people who are here to take care of you and make you comfortable and keep you secure. You think we could do that? I have no confidence that she'll keep this covenant. But I did ask. I said, can we just make this deal? I'm not sure what kind of deal the boss and the manager in this scripture today had, but they had some kind. There was absolutely an understanding of expectation there, because the employee, the manager, didn't meet it, and he's going to be fired. So what's he to do? It's a tricky parable. I know Kathy says this a lot, but it's a tricky parable, especially for us Christian capitalists. Because there's a certain way you do business. We want a square deal. We want everything clear. We want everything transparent. We don't want you cheating in business. Shouldn't do that. That's not right. The trickiest part and the hardest part is probably the idea that Jesus would say, okay, and the boss praised the manager for his shrewdness, for his dishonesty. Does that sound like anything Jesus would say? How can Jesus be telling a parable about praising someone about their dishonesty? Well, the thought occurs to us that maybe, this is just another parable. It's just, and I mean to say it that way, it's just another parable. Because it comes in a line of parables. And last week, Dwayne talked about the lost coin and the lost sheep, those parables. He talked about the lost son and the prodigal son. Well, here's another parable. Jesus told a lot of parables, didn't he? I think there's like 3 dozen if you count them in all the Gospels. Told parables about mustard seeds and wheat and sheep and goats and bridesmaids and lamps, about coins, a lot about agricultural planting and reaping and sowing, and he told a lot of parables. And they all have certain things in common. As we were discussing in this essentially this morning, if anybody ever says, I've got all the answers, here's the answers, here's exactly what this means, you don't need to worry about reading, get away from that person. Okay? No, really. But they do have certain things in common. And one of the things they have in common is pretty obvious. They're parables. They are stories with themes and characters in them that stand for something else. When he talks about a lost coin and the lady and her friends celebrating because she found a lost coin, there is no coin. There is no celebration. It's about something else. When he talks about sheep and goats, shocker, he's not talking about a real sheep or real goat. Okay? Not talking about a real mustard seed. He's talking about spiritual things. He's talking about holy things. It's hard to imagine what he might be talking about here, though, because he says, I praise you for your dishonesty, for your shrewdness. You know. So, I took the liberty, I don't think the bishop's going to fire me for this, but you never know. Took the liberty of rewriting the parable in a way that I could really understand it. And with the thought in mind, it's not really about a manager or money or gallons of oil or bushels of wheat or ledgers. It's not about any of that stuff. So, what if the parable went like this instead, okay? There is this God, full not of oil or wheat, that you can track in a ledger, but full of love and mercy, grace and forgiveness. And God had a disciple that he charged with sharing the blessings, these blessings with the world. When God found out the disciple was squandering what he had asked the disciple to tend to care for, and to share, he summoned the disciple to him. And said, what's this I hear about you, that you're being selfish and holding grudges and judging others and being exclusive and counting other sins and keeping people out and pretending you have more power than you really do or should? If all that's true, if you've been withholding grace and blessings and mercy and love, you cannot be my disciple anymore. I can't have you going around pretending that you do all this in my name when you don't. So the disciple thought, what am I going to do now? My position of privilege is being taken away from me. How could I ever have been so selfish? How could I have ever been so blind to the needs of the world? How could I have withheld from so many others what was so generously shared with me in the first place? I'm not strong enough to have earned this grace on my own, and I'm ashamed as anyone to need forgiveness. I've never earned it for myself in the first place. I know what I'll do. I'll do what I should have done all along. I'll be as generous and kind and forgiving with others as I woulda, shoulda, coulda, which is all that was ever asked of me to begin with. So, summoning God's children one by one, the disciple asked first, what is it that you feel you owe to God? For what sin are you holding on to with such guilt? And when the lost and broken soul confessed the sin, the disciple said to him, don't worry about another minute. Our God is a gracious, loving God of forgiveness and mercy. Receive the good news. Go your way and sin no more. And share this kindness and forgiveness with someone else. And the disciple did this again with another sinner and another, extending grace, announcing forgiveness, and expressing love for the least of these in the world. He got so crafty, so creative, so generous, and so extravagant with the love of God for all people that some people called him foolish. Foolish for wasting his love. He called him reckless, even unfaithful. But God smiled because the disciple had finally learned where true value and real riches and actual worth come from. Does that sound to you something more like Jesus would say? Yes. Isn't it more likely that Jesus was inviting the disciples and the likes of you and me to be shrewd and sneaky with generosity? I certainly think so. And once we see the parable through that kind of lens, it tends to make more sense. There's some other things that Jesus said in this when he's talking to them. One of the things is he said, if you're faithful in very little, then you'll be faithful in a lot. If you're unfaithful in a little, then you'll be unfaithful in a lot. Which seems to say that even a little bit of faith, maybe the faith of the size of a mustard seed, in God's kingdom can go a long, long way. And vice versa. A little bit of misuse and abuse in the kingdom can cause a whole lot of damage. Then he says this: if you've not been faithful with what belongs to another, who will give you what is your own? In other words, if you can't share the generosity and grace, what is God's in the first place, then you haven't truly received it. And finally, one that we get caught up on sometimes: no slave can serve two masters, for a slave will either hate the one and love the other, or be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and wealth. Some versions say God and mammon. This puts into perspective what is really worthy and truthful. It speaks to maybe that money is not very useful in God's economy, except when we use it for helping our brothers and sisters. Jesus is inviting us to be extravagant with grace, with forgiveness, with love. To do it with reckless abandon in ways that seem contrary to the world or against conventional wisdom. This is what we are called to do as disciples, each of us. To be different, to be the salt, to be the light, to be different. To be seen as radical, not with money, not with oil and wheat, but with forgiveness. The church is in the forgiveness business. And when we forget that, we get in trouble. I hope you have a good week this week and think about being radical with the blessings that you've been given.